Well, folks, we're coming up on the 2025 NHL trade deadline, and the trade deadline is always a pretty fun and wacky time in the world of the National Hockey League. You have teams who are contenders trying to make last minute ads to push their teams over the top, and conversely, you have teams that aren't contenders, teams that decided this ain't happening this year, selling off players, usually pending UFAs or expiring assets, in an effort to get something for them. And so it's always a flurry of activity. When it comes to the Calgary Flames this year, I think going in, everyone thought the Flames would be a bad team who would go into the trade deadline with a very obvious selling mentality. And if you follow the Calgary Flames this season, you've probably noticed they're not that bad. So they're probably not going to be selling off everything but the kitchen sink. Conversely, though, they're not great. They're in that mushy middle. They're not a surefire contender. They're not a surefire first overall lottery pick contender. They're somewhere in the middle. They are currently pushing for a wild card spot. As we record this, they're part of a 3 or 4 team clump fighting for one final Western Conference playoff spot. And so that makes their direction a little bit odd. And so as we prepare for the trade deadline, let's dive into what the Flames are doing, what we expect the Flames to do, and why we don't really expect very much out of the Flames at the coming trade deadline. If you've followed anyone who is a Flames fan on social media over the past season, you've probably noticed a pretty vocal contingent of fans who refer to themselves as Team Tank. The folks in Team Tank, in a nutshell, want the Flames to be bad. And not just bad, aggressively, purposefully bad. And bad with an aim towards getting the best possible draft choice in the upcoming NHL draft. This season, though, the Flames have not been bad. A, not nearly as bad as anyone expected them to be, and B, not nearly as bad as the folks from Team Tank want them to be. And so as the Flames are sort of hung around this season, and as their strong start beget an in the mix rest of the season, I think a lot of folks in Team Tank have been going, they need to sell off all their veterans. And folks, let me tell you, I don't think that's happening. And let me tell you why I don't think that's happening. So the Flames have been pretty much pushed to where they are by virtue of some of their younger players. So Dustin Wolf is the most obvious example. He's going to get Calder Trophy votes. He's among the best rookies in the NHL. He's easily the best rookie goaltender in the NHL. He's one of the best goalies in the NHL in his first full year in the league. And so because they have good goaltending, they've been able to be buoyed by that. And so they're in the mix by virtue of their goaltending. They're propped up by their goaltending. But they've also been propped up by some pretty strong performances by some of their young players. And this is where the veterans come in. And let me explain it. So the young players have come in. We've seen Connor Zary, Martin Pospisil, Matt Coronado, and some others. And they've come in and not only been on the team, but especially Coronado and Zary, they've been pretty important players for the team. And they've been able to be pretty important players in the Flames' mind because they've been surrounded with the right veterans. When the Flames embarked upon their last youth movement in 2014-2015, one of the reasons in the Flames' minds that they did so well, their young guys were able to work themselves into the NHL and become productive so quickly, is because they had the right veterans. Several young players pointed out Matt Stajan and some other players in their locker room as guys that help the young players become at home, become productive, become calm in that environment, in a very new environment in the National Hockey League. And I think the Flames look at the veterans they have. They've singled out their core veteran leadership group of Michael Backlund, Rasmus Anderson, Mackenzie Weegar, Blake Coleman, Nazem Kadri, and Jonathan Huberdeau. That's 6. I think they look at those 6 guys and go, those guys are making this an environment where the young guys can do their thing and they don't need to be thrown to the wolves, and they've allowed them to be the players they can be. And Looking ahead, the Flames have a lot of other young players in the system they're very high on. Zane Parekh could be in the National Hockey League as soon as next season. They have a lot of other young forwards in the system. William Stromgren, Adar Suniev, Jacob Battaglia. I'm going to miss some names because there's so many of them. But my point is, I think if you look at this season as sort of a trial balloon, the pilot for a new Flames era, I think you look at the young guys and go, that worked. And then you ask yourselves, why did it work? And part of it is the young guys they brought in are really good hockey players. But I think they look at the environment they are brought into that was created and maintained by the veterans and went, oh, okay, those guys are sort of the one of the underlying reasons why this was allowed to work. And so as a result, I don't think the Flames are in any hurry to move out any of these veterans. I don't think if they get a great offer, they're going to be like, no way, we ain't trading them for any reason whatsoever. Everyone has a price. But I also don't think they're in any hurry to push anyone out the door right now, because the guys who are in the room, especially those key veterans, they've allowed this situation to work as well as it has. So as a result, Team Tank, I know you guys are very passionate about the team. No one's telling you how to cheer or how not to cheer, but I'm just telling you, I don't think the Flames are going to be pushing anyone out the door willy-nilly just to get worse, just to get younger. I think if they're going to do anything, it'll be for very specific purposes. I would point to the Jacob Markstrom trade they made in the offseason as an example, as in, oh, why the hell would you trade a guy who was contending for the Vezina Trophy as the NHL's top goaltender recently? And the answer is, one, they got a pick out of it. Two, they got a age group asset in Kevin Ball, a young 25-year-old defenseman who fit in right away. And it also allowed them to open up cap space, and it also allowed them to make Dustin Wolf a full-time NHLer. So if you ask yourself, oh, why would you make that trade? There's 4 good reasons. And so that's almost the standard now for if you're pushing a veteran out the door, you need to sort of have it fit into the overall plan of what you're doing. The Markstrom trade completely fit with what they wanted to do, and it allowed them to move their program forward. And if you look at how Dustin Wolf has gone and how Dan Vladar has played this year when he has had a good run at games, their goaltending is actually better this season statistically than it was last season. And so I think you have to look at that as a success. And I think if you're the Flames and you see why it worked and how it worked, I think it makes you not really want to veer from that kind of strategy. So again, this is a long-winded way of me saying I really wouldn't expect them to do too much at this trade deadline, simply because what are they going to do? I would also sort of point to the recent trade they made with Philadelphia, the Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee acquired for a couple draft picks, Andrei Kuzmenko and Jacob Pelche, as an example of the kind of things the Flames might be looking for. Age group assets, guys who sort of fit that 23 to 25 range of players. And guys, I think you probably want to look at what you can do to add a bit more offense, not just for this season, but going forward. If you're the Flames right now, if you make the playoffs, it's a bonus because at the very least, the young guys in this organization are going to be playing meaningful games through to the end of the season. They're going to play 82 actually important games. You're not going to have the usual, 30 games that don't mean anything that a lot of bad teams get, where you're sort of just, going through the motions and bad habits can creep in then. They're not going to have that. So if you're someone going, what's the point if they don't make the playoffs? The point is meaningful games is the point. Meaningful games help develop young players in their minds, and they're getting that. The other thing is, if you make it, what if you get your brains beat in? Yeah, that's completely possible. It's completely possible, and I would argue probable, that if they make the playoffs, they ain't in it for long. I don't think it's being mean to say the Calgary Flames, as currently constructed, are not a playoff contender yet. What do they need? They need high-end offensive players in order to turn a team with good work ethic but bad finishing into a team with good work ethic and better finishing. Matt Coronado, I think, is a player that they can build around. Connor Zary is a player they can build around, but they need more. Zane Parekh will help, potentially as early as next season. But if you're the Flames, you probably want to get more of those types of players. And that means you're not necessarily trading first-round picks this year or second-round picks this year, or even, I would argue, first or second-round picks the next few years, because you want to keep building up that farm system and hoping that one of these good young players, that sort of B tier of prospects, one of them pops and turns into an A tier player or an A- tier player, someone who can, be an offensive player that helps out the rest of the group. So that's probably something they'd be looking at. But the fact is, you're likely not getting those types of players at the trade deadline, and so you're probably holding on to your assets. And so I would very much expect the Flames to stand pat. Should they add? Probably not. I don't think there's anything that they could add that would really change the team to the point where they would be able to win a playoff round. At least not right now. Should they sell? As I mentioned, I don't think they're in a mindset of they want to sell. I think they look at the body of work this group has put together this season and go, okay, they deserve a chance to see it through, and they've earned their way into this situation. And so I don't think they want to break up the group for that. And finally, why should they stand pat? Well, you want to kind of see what your team can do. Playing meaningful games is a way to see what players can do in really stressful, high stress situations. And so a lot of that is, all right, let's see what they can do. When it's clutch time, how many of these guys can elevate? And if the answer is a few of them, you learn something new about your group. And if the answer is, maybe you need some more guys that have that kind of, as the kids say, have that dog in them, at key moments of the season and key moments in games, you learn something. And so if the idea is that this is the first year of an experiment, this is the first year of a plan designed to turn the Flames eventually into a championship caliber hockey team, they already started off being better than they thought they'd be, so they don't want to veer that much. And B, you haven't really finished your data collection period from this season yet. You have 82 games to learn about your group, and they've only played about 60 odd. So you kind of want to be able to develop your full sample, take a look at it in the summer with clear eyes when you're away from the emotion of the season, and then make decisions on what kind of tweaks you want to make. So I would expect the Flames to, they're going to have a ton of cap space this offseason. I would expect them to use some of it. I wouldn't rule out the Flames being a potential trade broker at the trade deadline. Chicago very recently traded Seth Jones to Florida and used their last their salary retention slot. And so the Calgary Flames have two. So the Calgary Flames could retain salary and help other teams do things, get picks out of them. I think that's something that the Flames would very much be in on. But as far as anything else, maybe they make some depth tweaks here and there. But I think they're really curious and really fascinated as to what this current group is and what they can accomplish. And I think they want to give them the full season, all 82 games, to learn that. And if that 82 games, sees them finish a point or two out of the playoffs, all right, you learned something from that. And if they happen to finish above the cut line and they play for another 2 weeks, all right, they probably won't go very far in the playoffs if they make it, but I think you learn something about this group in that situation that would allow the team's management to go into the summer and make better decisions. And so, I think they've earned their way into the situation, and I think they probably want to see this thing through and see what else this group is capable of before they start changing the group. So that's all I got. As I mentioned, I don't think it's going to be a very active trade deadline, but it'd be kind of interesting to be shown and proven wrong. I've been wrong in the past. That's all I have for this video. If you like this video, please click the like button. If you really like this video, please click the subscribe button. If you have tips, tricks, suggestions, comments, ideas for future videos, throw them in the comments as well. And thanks very much for watching, and I hope everyone enjoys what could be, probably aside from the Flames, could be a pretty eventful and exciting NHL trade deadline.